Hello, Miracle Hill friends and family. We wanted to put a quick video together. This is the end of our fiscal year, which means the end of one season and the beginning of a new season. And so we wanted to get together and just give you a quick update of things that are going on across the ministry, as well as opportunities coming into the new fiscal year. So we're just going to jump right in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we are still seeing God move across the ministry. We've already served several thousand people across our shelters, our programs, our transitional homes, all the different ways that we get to serve the public each day that they are receiving food and shelter with compassion, hearing the good news of Jesus Christ, and moving towards healthy relationships and stability. We got a couple projects that we're working on. One of them that we're excited about is a beautification project for the Greenville Rescue Mission. So that is our oldest residential facility. It's in downtown Greenville. It's been on West Washington Street for over 70 years, amazingly. And over the past 10 years, the area of Greenville that we live in has changed dramatically. And so we're doing this huge project to beautify and update the exterior pretty much for two purposes. Number one, we want to be the best neighbor we can be and serve those around us, those both experiencing homelessness as well as the neighbors that we live around. Number two, and more importantly, we want to provide a safe haven for those that are coming into the rescue mission. We want to provide them something beautiful, something that provides safety and security, and helps them to understand that they're loved. One part of that project is this amazing statue of Jesus washing Peter's feet, so that when people walk in the front door of the rescue mission, they will be physically met with love, but they will visually understand where they're coming and what opportunities that they have in front of them. As we have focused on transitional housing for years, we are now starting work on our 18th transitional house, which is a transitional house for women beside our Cherokee County Rescue Mission. So the work is already underway on that, and that will mean that we have 120 safe, affordable, and accountable beds for people as they exit out of our shelters or our programs, that they can take the next step in life.
Yeah, and praise God, that project is fully funded.
Fully funded.
In Cherokee County, so we're excited about that. We do have some motion up at the children's home. You guys may remember that back in the beginning of 2020, kind of right when COVID was coming along, you had to make the tough choice to transition our children's home into a foster care community. And we made that transition successfully. But what that looks like now is that up at the children's home in Pumpkintown in Pickens County, we have foster families who have been licensed by Miracle Hill who live in the cottages that are up on that property, and they can take up to 5 children each. The average, we hope, is 4 children each in their homes, but those are foster children, foster youth, with a focus on sibling groups and teenagers in particular. But we currently have 5 families residing in cottages up there. We have a 6th family that's about to move in any day. That cottage has been finalized, and we're working on getting a 7th cottage ready for move-in by January of 2024. But you know, that's not necessarily final. That's all the cottages there for now, but should God lead, maybe someday in the future that there may be some opportunity for growth there. But we want you to know that the children's home community, the foster care community, is very much alive and well. And it's not just children who are getting help today that we're seeing their lives change. It's children of yesterday. And so I actually wanted to read a quick note. We got a letter, actually a graduation announcement in the mail from a former guest, a former child who stayed up at the children's home when he was 8 years old. And I just wanted to read it to you really quickly. I'm not going to say his name, but this is what he said. He said, "Dear Miracle Hill Ministries, I was adopted from Miracle Hill's group home, so our children's home up there, in 2013 when I was almost 8 years old. I had been removed from my birth family because of parental neglect. I was passed between foster homes and group homes until I reached Miracle Hill. The people there invested in me and took care of me. I got adopted and have been with my forever family for 10 years now. I'm 18. I write music and I sing. I'm the salutatorian of my graduating class, and I have a lot of people that love and care about me. I have been accepted into college with a few really big academic scholarships as well. I'm sending this letter to say thank you and to share my story of success. I went from a child with no family or future of my own to who I am today, and Miracle Hill was an important piece in between. We know that Jesus is ultimately the most important piece, and we want guests and former guests to know that there's a God who loves them. And that kind of leads me to my next point, which is a huge development over this fiscal year has been the launching of an app. We have a mobile app that we launched in March, and that mobile app is a powerful tool that gives people the ability to find the resources that they need, but it also empowers you, kind of your average member of the community here, or your average church member. It gives you the ability to engage with people in a whole new way. It's a tool that will point them toward shelter, food, recovery services, and it's not just Miracle Hill resources that we have listed in that app. It's organizations all over the place. Miracle Hill is very much king and kingdom. Like we don't want it to ever be about Miracle Hill. We want it to be about King Jesus, and that's what this app is about, and about equipping you to help people and be a part of that healing ministry. Another big development that took place this year was the launching of Miracle Hill's first children's book. It's an illustrated children's book authored by our very own Sandy Furnell, who's on staff here, but it's called Isabel's Invisible Neighbor, and it's this really beautiful story about a child, a girl who makes a new friend at school and eventually finds out that friend is experiencing homelessness. And it's kind of her struggle or her discovery about, how do I help? How can I be a part of that? It has a lot of discussion questions in the end. I think you authored those discussion questions. But it's to challenge you to be able to teach your children, hey, how do we help people? How do we serve as the Good Samaritan? How do we serve as the tools and hands and feet of Jesus? People who are hurting and struggling. We can teach our children at a very young age. So if you want to know more about that book, or how your church can use it, or maybe you're a school teacher and you want to use it, we'd love for you to reach out to us.
Yeah, and before we leave children, I should note that the state is still 2,000 families short for having all the foster families needed to cover every child in the state. As we are more and more focused on foster care, we need more and more families who will prayerfully consider if the Lord's calling them into a foster care ministry in their own home. That being said, we're focused on things internal. We have been for a couple of years. We're kind of saying that we're focused on going deeper rather than wider as a ministry. We're continuing to look at what our staff are telling us, what our guests are telling us, how we can be the healthiest ministry that we can be. One of the things that we're singularly focused on is increasing their pay and the health of their experience as staff members at Miracle Hill, which means that our budget has to go to that, right? Like that is not a magical thing that happens. We have to intentionally focus on that. So we've already increased our lowest wage by a couple of dollars over the past few years, and we're increasing it by a couple more dollars going into this next fiscal year. I'm both really sad that my buddy Ken is retiring, Ken Krutoff, who served as our Chief Operating Officer for the last 5.5 years. But I'm also excited that the Lord has called Justin Bowles from Citygate Network, who will arrive right at the beginning of July, and we'll look forward to meeting many of you over the next year. Please be praying for Ken and Caroline as they transition into the next season of their life, and pray for Justin and his family as they come.
Before we go on to the next topic, can I ask a question that maybe they would want to know
Sure.
the answer to? You mentioned Citygate. What is Citygate for people who might not understand what that is?
Right, so for 170 years or something, there's been this organization in the United States that you would, if you've heard of it, it was called the Association of Gospel Rescue Missions. Today it's called Citygate Network. So Citygate Network is this collaboration, this network of rescue missions across not just America, but the Americas into Europe. So Justin is uniquely suited in that he has visited over 100 organizations just like Miracle Hill. He's interacted with probably over 300 organizations just like Miracle Hill.
Yeah.
And his heart is to be more on the front lines. It's to come here and get to be part of direct life change rather than being 150,000 feet up.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah. I'm excited. We want to thank you guys and just stop for a second and talk about the impact of donor support. You know, for the first 3 quarters of this fiscal year, we've already served over 2,000 men, women, and children across our shelters. That number will eclipse the 3,000 individual mark. 3,000 men, women, and children who have come to us broken and in need. And the spectrum is so broad when you talk about who our guests are. You know, we talked about this young man who came to Miracle Hill and was adopted at 8 years old from our children's home. But I think about the older teenagers who may find themselves at a rescue mission, or that man or woman who's in their 80s who stays with us at night.
We had somebody in their 80s check in just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and we have people who may be autistic, or you know, we know mental illness plays a huge part into it. There are so many different types of people who call Miracle Hill home. But when they come here, they may be homeless or hopeless, but they are not without a home here at Miracle Hill. They are not without hope here at Miracle Hill, and that is because of you guys. And so we want to thank you for that. You know, when I try to talk about what we do here as a ministry, sometimes I feel like I drone on because it's so much going on. But just to recap briefly, you know, we're running 4 rescue missions with hundreds of guests staying in those rescue missions. We have 650 people plus in care every single night, and on those cold weather nights, that number can go way up. We have 2 recovery facilities. Miracle Hill operates a food ministry where we distribute food to the community. Ryan talked about our 18th transitional home, but we also have 8 thrift stores, and many of you know us because of the ministry work that goes on at those thrift stores. Thank you guys for making what we do a reality. And I want to talk about our volunteers for a second. You know, sometimes the volunteers and donors, they are the same people.
Sure.
You know, I remember I met a man several years ago, and I started talking to him about the Greenville Rescue Mission. And because he's a supporter of ministry, and he quickly told me that he serves about 15 to 20 hours a week in the rescue mission. And I realized I was in the presence of someone who probably knew a lot more about the rescue mission than I did at the time. You guys, you donors, are oftentimes the volunteers who also make the ministry happen. So we've had hundreds of volunteers over the course of this past year, and we want to thank you, our volunteers. You make such a difference in the lives of the people that we serve. If you attend a recovery graduation program, if you attend any of those, you'll hear oftentimes the guests who are graduating say, I want to thank, you know, Mr. Kevin or Miss Susan. They'll want to thank the people who stood in the gap to love them as a volunteer, even when they didn't understand or know how to love themselves or realize that there was a God who loves them. You guys make a difference. You know, a big emphasis that we have on volunteerism here at Miracle Hill is recurring volunteer opportunities, relational opportunities. And sometimes there are those one-off opportunities where maybe you come and you help us paint, or a group activity. But what we really want to focus on are those recurring opportunities where you come and you come back and you come back, and they get to see your face again and again, and you build relationship with people that we're loving in the name of Jesus. And so many of you do that. We want to say thank you to you. We also want to shout out our churches. Miracle Hill is very fortunate in that we have hundreds of churches that are partnered with us, and they're partnered in so many different ways. You know, many of you help with volunteer projects. You provide landscaping or programs on the weekends. You know, we have churches that come in and lead worship for our Women's Renewal Recovery Program, or come and do a cookout for our Men's Overcomers Program, or people who come and help with chapel at the rescue missions. Mentors come from the church partners that we have. We are so thankful for you guys. We are an extension of the church. You know, we are the Big C Church, loving people in the name of Jesus. And we could not do this work here at Miracle Hill were it not for the local church bodies that make it happen. And so we want to say thank you to you all. We thank you for the financial support that you send our way. We're truly appreciative.
You know, a lot of people would say, well, I want to volunteer, or my church wants to volunteer, but we don't have anything to offer. And I would say that God has uniquely knit you together, and you've got some skill that I promise you that our guests need. Do you know how to drive a car? We need drivers. Do you know how to answer a phone? We need people at our front desks. Do you know how to have lunch with somebody and care for the person just in general conversation across from you, we have an opportunity for that too. So I echo what you're saying. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all the ways that you guys care for us. It doesn't mean that this work's not without its issues, right? Not
Correct.
without challenges, both in our rear view mirror and in the headlights up in front of us. We certainly have seen kind of a plateau happening in our thrift stores with sales. We've seen a plateau in some of our giving. We need you guys as much today as we ever have in the history of Miracle Hill. We need you to help keep the lights on. We need you to help keep the food on the plates. We need you, and we're trusting in God.
Yeah, I'll echo what you said. Sometimes, Ryan and I were just talking about this, but I think sometimes we paint such a picture of the victories here at Miracle Hill, and there are struggles here too, right? Like for every letter that we read like this young man who wrote this letter, there are people who come here and are not ready yet, and they fall flat on their face, and that is difficult. But we entrust them to the Lord, and we entrust our programs to the Lord. But so often we're painting a picture for you guys of the victories and successes, and telling you about the new and big things and exciting things that have gone on this past year. But the truth is, with 650 plus people in care every single night, that's a tall order. You know, I have the opportunity to serve at the rescue missions each week, serve lunch. And just at the Greenville Rescue Mission alone, they're serving 3 meals a day to close to 140 men. 3 times a day, somebody's got to get up.
Hungry men.
Hungry men, indeed, they're hungry men. But I want you to know that there is an expense to that, and maybe we don't say that enough. We know that you guys know it, but if you would. Consider standing in a gap with us here at the end of our fiscal year. Our fiscal year ends at the end of June, and we want to make a big push, even with people talking about fear of recession and all that. We look around the country and we have other rescue mission partners that are in a similar situation to us. They've got a little gap, or some of them huge gaps that they need to close here at the end of the year to pay for operating expenses. That's our biggest need right now, is general operating expenses. And the way that works is when you give to Miracle Hill and you give to our general operating fund, we kind of partition all that out and put it to the programs where it is needed the most. We want you to understand that. So when you give, we would encourage you, give to operations, so we can pay for salaries and keep the lights on, and food and
gas in the car.
Foster care coordinators, who carry a caseload. You name it. There are people relying on how God uses you to provide. So just want to encourage you there. I will say this too, Ryan. We don't take any government funding at all. I think that blows a lot of people away when they hear it. And we're able to do that because of you. And in doing so, we have a freedom to wield and share the gospel in some incredible ways, because we don't take any government funding at all. And so we're just appreciative of you guys who make that possible.
Thank you guys for sharing in the Lord's work here at Miracle Hill, for being a part of this ministry every day, for watching this video and knowing how to pray specifically for our needs, for our guest needs. We cannot do what we do without you partnering with us, partnering with the Lord for the health and the well-being of the hundreds and hundreds of men, women, and children that are in our care. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please prayerfully consider how you'll partner with us here going into the next fiscal year. God bless. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.